It was a very insightful topic, though. Yeah, so I would like now to move on to the next talk, which is by Dr. Bhakti Vijnana Muni, and it is moderated by Dr. Chandrasekharam. So, a brief introduction to both these personalities. So, Dr. B.V. Muni has received his degree in chemical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. He completed his thesis with the supportive guidance of Professor S. Day. Simultaneously, from 2000 to 2006, Dr. Muni was engaged in devotional service under his Diksha Guru, Sripad Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, PhD. His duties ranged from assisting with editing to eventually contributing to writing of scientific publications printed and distributed by Sripad Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj. Upon the disappearance of Sripad Maharaj from this world, Dr. Muni followed his guru's instructions to continue his service under the guidance of Dr. B. M. Puri. Directed by Dr. B. M. Puri, after receiving the blessings of Chaitanya Saraswat Math, Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj, B.V. Muni, and B.N. Shanta established the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute of Spiritual Culture and Science in Bangalore, India. Under the guidance of Dr. B. M. Puri, the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute inaugurated the annual Science and Scientist International Conference series in 2013. Now, moderator Dr. M. Chandrasekharam is presently a senior principal scientist and chair Department of Knowledge and Information Management at the CSIR Institute, Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, Hyderabad. He has been working at IICT since 2002 and published over 100 articles in international journals, apart from delivering lectures at various international conferences in India and abroad. His significant lectures include at Solar World Congress 2011, Germany, National Institute of Material Science, NIMS, Japan, American Ceramic Society Conference, Clearwater, Florida. He served as Technical Advisory Committee member during 2013 to 2016 for Solar Energy Center, ARCI, Hyderabad. He visited US, Germany, Japan, Swiss, Spain, Italy, Taiwan, and UK. So I would request Dr. B.V. Muni to please commence his talk as part of the session 3. Thank you so much.
My mic is muted now? Okay. Fine. So I thank Sripad Madan Manohar Prabhu for introducing, and also I thank Professor Chandrasekharan for being part of this conference. So this is the title of the conference is Life Comes from Life. So on this theme, this conference has been organized, and few thoughts are being shared, which I have learned in the association of my teachers, my spiritual masters, specifically Sripad Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj and Sripad Bhakti Madhav Puri Maharaj, who taught us all of these subjects in great details with much dedication and hard work for many years. So now, from where this idea of life comes from, life comes. This idea comes from also science, as well as from our Bhagavad Gita. So in Bhagavad Gita, it has been mentioned, Mamivangsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha Manaha Shashtha Indriyani Prakritik Sthanik Karshati. So here the Lord says, the living entities in this world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So this is the idea of life comes from life, ultimately. And in science also, this has been there for many years, especially the concept of biogenesis, which meant initially that life does not arise spontaneously from matter. So like Huxley, and then later on it was put into firm foundations by Louis Pasteur when he did the experiments with the swan neck apparatus, where he showed that when there is no external contamination, there is no growth of organisms. So by that he proved that life does not arise spontaneously. So this argument is there since time immemorial. If you go back past 2000 years also, this argument is there, whether life comes from matter or it is not coming from matter. This has been there. And there has been two camps throughout the history. And in modern times, this has taken a new form where they say that the life comes from life in general when we see nature, but maybe the first life could have come from chemical combinations. And from that argument, the entire thesis of abiogenesis or materialistic approach to understand life has been constructed. So in modern times, that is in 21st century, there is no actual evidence for abiogenesis. So there's a necessity to relook from the frontiers of the 21st century biology to understand whether this debate has decided in which direction. So, and in Latin it is said omne vivum ex vivo, which means all life is from life. This is also coming from that idea, and also a very famous and very important, let's say, cardinal statement of modern cell theory is that omnis cellula est cellula. All cells are from cells. That means we have no evidence that any cell can come from, let's say, chemical combinations, or like so many theories have been floated, but they have not produced an actual cell, living cell. So this is the foundation for the life comes from life. And so this is to contrast with the other idea, which has pushed the theories like abiogenesis, where chemicals could have led to the first life. So now we have to understand, since we are in the 21st century biology, it has also undergone a change in its conceptions. And so we make two categories: the frontier biology, that we are coming from the frontiers of the experiments and the conceptualizations. We call it 21st century biology. And the conventional biology is that biology which is which happened after the DNA structure was discovered, and then they developed gene theory, and they tried to develop a mechanistic idea of biology. So now the conventional biology, that is the old biology, it was the reductionistic concept of the cell. Basically, it is a Cartesian approach where they separate the information and the structure function of the cell. So there was a DNA molecule in the center, and there was various functions which was going on, and which was being completely controlled by the DNA molecule. So this was a theory that was in the 1950s, especially after it got popular after Crick and Watson got the Nobel Prize for discovery of DNA structure. So that Crick and Francis Crick put the DNA in the center of biology. So biology becomes all about DNA molecule. And then later on, they had to explain this, that how it explains, the phenomena of cell biology. So for that, they come up with the idea of central dogma and the concept of randomness, which is a mechanistic conception, which means the cell is like a very complex machine, which is again a Cartesian idea, and then which meant the cell is nothing but all the information on the cell was in the DNA molecule. To contrast it with the 21st century biology, which is now coming in the frontiers, which is providing an internal critique from the science of biology itself, rather than from anything outside. That is, it is approaching a more holistic concept where we cannot reduce the causality of the cell to some particular organelle like DNA. And the major contribution, although there are many scientists who have given major contributions to this newer understanding, but the central focus or the greatest, what to say, impact was given by Barbara McClintock, who got Nobel Prize in 1983 for discovery of jumping gene. And conceptually, her efforts put the cell back in the center of biology, not just the cytology part or the DNA part, but the entire cell was put back. That means the epigenetics, the, what to say, the transient structures, the functions, and the what is called as the thoughtful genome or thoughtful cell. So the entire concept becoming less gene centric and more holistic conceptions. And with that came in the concept of non-randomness. So non-randomness, again, that means the concept of mutations changed and newer terms started coming up, just like mutagenesis, natural intelligence. These type of words were being quoted. And you can see the whole biology become permeated with, what to say, informational terms, informational concepts, rather than mechanistic machine concepts. So then it gradually gave rise to intelligent concepts, and the cognitive concept of the cell become important. So it is very amazing that in the conventional biology, that is in the biology which was practiced in the DNA-centric approach, there was rather hardly any discussion about cell cognition, communication, or what to say, response, or cognitive functions of the aspects of the cell. But now, because of the holistic approach, a more cognitive and intelligent features of the cell started becoming revealed. So that means the cell cannot be reduced to something more simple, like a bunch of molecules, whether it is a, what to say, a production of a cell, that is reproduction, or the functioning, or the structure, or its like telos, that means its objectives or the purpose for which the cell is functioning. So none of this could be reduced to something more simpler than the cell itself. And so the modern biology's definition is still that the cell is the, what to say, the most fundamental unit of life. And that is what gives a holistic picture of the cell. So the question is this. In chemistry, we have this periodic table. So can we produce a single cell by taking the elements from this table? And so, but abiogenics has not been demonstrated in laboratories. Like Sripad Puri Maharaj always says this thing, all the science and the scientists together cannot produce a single blade of grass. They have not produced a single element of life. They have only produced some molecules like urea or DNA molecule, or some kind of some amino acids and some genomic components, but they have never produced what to say, a actual living cell. So the question is, why even the so-called simplest organism cannot be manufactured in labs when we begin with chemicals? So this is the question which has not been answered within mechanistic approaches. So this is, I took one paper from one Daniel. He wrote some nice papers, and this is one comparison he has given. We have to understand what is a machine and what is an organism. Why we cannot talk about organisms in terms of mechanistic or machine language. So unfortunately, in modern schools and colleges, this subject is not taught very well. That means they don't have any conceptual tools to understand these topics. So they take very naively that, okay, just like machines, we could explain the cell as a very complex mechanical activity. So they go for, let's say, various mathematical models and what to say, employing chemical concepts by which they try to explain the cell. But unfortunately, a lot of features of cells are like completely left untouched in this approach. So we can just take some kind of comparison. When we talk about purposiveness, organization, maintenance and repair, functional determinations, properties of parts, we can see in every aspect there's a difference between an organism and a machine. Organism is inherently purposive, but machine's purpose is something external. Like if somebody, an engineer is necessary to run a machine. An engineer utilizes a machine for specific functions. Like I'm using a cycle to go to some distance. Cycle has nothing like a notion of going to some distance. It is just an assembly of some nuts, bolts, and cycles and tires. Where is the idea of traveling inherent in the notion of a bicycle? But in an organism, to survive, to defend, to eat, this is intrinsic. Who has put this like purposes inside the organism? And we cannot find any external agent. We have to think that it is a systemic thing. The whole system has that purpose, and it is naturally purposive. Whereas the purpose in a machine is something external. Its organization is self-determined, maintenance is self-determined, functional determination is also self-determined. But for a bicycle, for example, it requires an organizer, it requires a manufacturer, it requires a maintainer. But in a cell, these functions of metabolism is doing all the work, and metabolism is dictated by cells' own inner intrinsic determinations. Parts are actually codependent with the whole. We cannot think about the parts in a cell in a mechanical sense. That means the parts are coming through the whole. Like when the egg is developing, all the different differentiations are occurring within the whole itself, and the egg is becoming a chicken or whatever species it belongs to. But in the case of an machine, we have to add those parts and create some external force to make them function. So like that, we can see many differences between organisms and machines, and this itself is a big topic. And we can conclude very safely, an organism is not equal to any machine. With this understanding, let's make further progress. Now, a shift occurred in the classical worldview in the 20th century, and in the 21st century, it has become more consolidated. And specifically in biology also, its effect is seen. Biology, what is the conceptual change that has occurred is the cognitive revolution. That means the cognitive informatic view of how living cells operate and utilize their genomes is radically different from the genetic determinism perspective articulated most succinctly in the last century by Francis Crick's famous central dogma of molecular biology. So this is Professor James Shapiro from University of Chicago in America. He is very enthusiastic proponent of this cognitive concept of life in the cell. He says, for example, in his book Evolution from 21st Century, is that all life requires cognition at all levels. He is a student of Barbara McClintock and very enthusiastic persons, and he has inspired many students and scholars by visiting many colleges, giving lectures, and writing prolifically in Huffington Post and other popular media to popularize these frontiers of biology. Specifically, the idea of cognition has been like a great focus in this frontier biology. So therefore, it is important to relook into this central dogma, which is thus basis of all mechanistic speculations about life, with the newer and the modern view of cytology or the genetics or genomics. So we can see the first line in 1970, it was a linear causality. That means the DNA had all the information, and information was flowing into RNA, proteins, phenotypes. Everything was like centralized in the DNA. But as more progress was made, we can see so many interconnections, so many two-way path, it is not that a linear causality, but rather cause and effect become codependent. That means the cause becomes the effect, and the effect becomes the cause of the, let's say, DNA molecules, which was thought to be the cause of everything. So the causality becomes circular, or more entangled, or more non-reductionistic in the modern approach. We cannot reduce the entire information of the cell to the DNA molecule alone. We have to consider the proteins, we have to consider the environment, we have to consider the intercellular, intracellular information exchange, and many newer aspects of information exchange. That's why now epigenetics, epigenesis, these topics have become very important. So we have to know what are the problems or difficulties in conventional biology. Unfortunately, this idea proliferates in the minds of many unsuspecting students, but it is from the words of the leading scientists, we have to learn this thing. That means we have to know, for example, Crick, what was his, emphasis. So although he gave a mechanistic idea, but he understood. And he said this thing, that on the other hand, the discovery of just one type of present day cell which could carry out any of the three unknown transfers would shake the whole intellectual basis of molecular biology. So he knew that if DNA, it does not turn out to be the reservoir of all information, and if DNA itself depended upon, let's say, epigenesis or epigenetics, say the proteins or some other organelle to function, then that will be the blow to the mechanistic foundations of biology. And Shapiro concludes that there is no central dogma in biology today. There is nothing like unidirectional information flow. There is no Cartesian compartmentalization. So we know the mechanism idea or the machine idea came from Descartes. And now what exactly that means is a compartmentalization or separation of different components like information molecules, or functional molecules, or this whole cell structure. All these things are not separate from each other. They are like codependent. One thing depends upon the another. Chicken and egg. We cannot say which is first, which is last. Without chicken, we cannot have an egg, and without an egg, we cannot have a chicken. A tree is developing from the seed, but from where the seed is coming, it is again coming from the fruit, which is coming from a tree. So how can you make a linear chain of this causal structure? So fundamentally, how biology is functioning, logically, if we study the logic, is totally different and totally distinct from the mechanistic or mechanical concepts. This is the foundation that we have to very clearly understand. So this is McClintock. She got the Nobel Prize, we have discussed already. And this is her conclusion. In fact, McClintock was a very diligent lady, and she was working at a time when people were very, atheistic, very, reductionistic, mechanistic, and it was very difficult to say anything outside machine language. She was working in 1930s with her experiments, 40s, 50s. It was only 1983 that she got her recognition for her work for jumping genes, in which she showed that the cell is functioning very intelligently. The mutations, randomness idea are not actually happening randomly, but rather there is a very cognitive or intelligent or smart concepts necessary. And this she put in her own words in a more circular language or holistic language. In future, attention undoubtedly will be centered on the genome, and with appreciation of its significance as a highly sensitive organ of the cell monitoring genomic activities and correcting common errors, sensing the unusual and unexpected events, and responding to them often by restructuring the genome. So you can see in this quote, there are two aspects. One focuses on the genome and the other focuses on the cell. So we have to consider both the genome and the cell, not just the genome. That will be reductionistic. But when we consider both, it becomes holistic. It becomes a cognitive or a more intelligent, it leads to a more cognitive and more intelligent concept, which is there since time immemorial among the philosophers, but was unfortunately ignored to artificially produce a very mechanistic machine-like concept for organisms. So she says, we know nothing, however, how the cell senses danger and instigates responses to it that are often truly remarkable. So this is coming from one of the leading geneticists, cytologists, a very intelligent lady. Her teacher, McClintock's teacher, said about her, that he has met many people, but among all those people, McClintock was the best and the greatest genius. So from her, such words are coming, then we should definitely give our thoughts into her words and what exactly she's trying to say here. So this brings us to our age-old questions of ontological distinctions. So philosophically, it is said mechanical systems, chemical systems, and biological systems are not the same. Specifically, biological systems, they are not just some substance, but they are persons, they're subject, they're subjective. And you cannot ignore the subjectivity part of the, or the logic part of the organisms in the biological systems, and just keep on speaking like a system of chemicals. And so this itself is a big subject, and a lot of good papers are there on the internet and by many good authors. And if you can go to take some interest in this line, you can study this, and you can find what is this exactly, its great significance in understanding biology. So what we can understand then from all this, that additional to genomes or whatever we have been studying in laboratories or our general approach, now we need a cognitive biology, which is being also incorporated in advanced biology courses nowadays. There is a Journal of Consciousness Studies. There is also cognitive biology is coming up now since 1990s. But no one really understands this, especially those who are rooted in mechanism or reductionistic approach. But it is a good thing that at least this cognition word is popping up, is coming up in studies like studies about the bees, studies about the intelligence, like intelligent aspects of plants, bees, rats. Are organisms, are animals intelligent? These type of questions are now a routine part of many discussions. But this is not just coming from only philosophy, it is coming from the actual experimental findings. And there are three basic facts in this, the cognitive aspect. First is that the cells do not act blindly. If it was mutations, that is a blind act. But from the work of McClintock, and specifically the book of Shapiro, Evolution, A View from 21st Century, he has highlighted many aspects of intelligence in things like adaptation, in things like mutation. He terms a new word for the mutations. Mutations, when they are not random, but rather they are intelligent, and he uses a word called mutagenesis. So mutagenesis is different from the word mutations, and he coins another term, intelligence. But because this intelligence is nothing external, he uses the word natural genetic engineering. That means the cell naturally engineers its genes to produce novelties, to produce outcomes. So if evolution is true, if you consider that, then you must include the study of intelligence before you study what is evolution. So therefore, it itself is a important, development from the frontiers of biology, that we must include the concepts of intelligence to understand biology. So genome changes are therefore neither random nor accidental, and evolution cannot be explained as a result of accumulation of fixation of random changes. This is old idea. New idea is the novelties produced by naturally by the engineering capabilities of the cell itself. So this is following the work of the work of McClintock, and as being popularized by Shapiro. that it indicates that the concept of intelligence is found necessary to explain the findings of the genomic studies. Now, Charles Monod, he was working in 1940s, and his work is being quoted in many of the evidences in those days. But he himself said this, that not enough experiments have been done to show whether cells respond in a deterministic way. So deterministic means mechanistic. So that was not established. And now the modern view is that what we know for sure is that even these smallest cells use sophisticated sensory and intracellular communication processes to discriminate between alternative nutrients. So these concepts of communication and concepts of response become more important in post-conventional biology era. So how can we understand this non-randomness concepts? So there are now new concepts coming up. Someone was asking the relevance of semiotics in just 1 hour ago, someone was asking. And so we can see that there are symbolic aspects, like we talk about checkpoint controls. Like if you write down the particular function of a cell, let's say the lac operon process, then you can see the algorithm of the let's say sugar digestion or glucose digestion. And you can see in every step there is a question, and it's like a Boolean logic, yes or no. If it is yes, it goes in one direction. If it is no, it's going another direction. It is not happening randomly. It is happening by some kind of a algorithm. So where is the information of this algorithm coming from, and where exactly is the information of this algorithm? And we cannot find it in only in the DNA, but it is there in the whole cell. So therefore, this symbolic aspect is a very important indicator of a cognitive or a non-random or intelligent algorithmic approach to modern biology. So modern biology no doubt has discovered a large vocabulary of chemical symbols, and cell cognition and intracellular communication are central to all levels of life and deserve a detailed empirical and theoretical analysis. So now what is the problem when we talk about this kind of which is coming from the actual experiments, that we need these conceptual tools? But the problem is that modern scientists are too much fixated by the concept of observables. Now if you say can you show an intelligence? So where is intelligence? Now how can you understand intelligence as something like a rock? It is not like a rock. Intelligence is a concept. So you have to have a conceptual approach. But when you want to objectify in terms of some molecules or atoms, then certainly you cannot talk about intelligence and in the sense of mechanistic limitations. You have to include this more holistic, more conceptual tools to understand this. And in physics itself, they have introduced many of these non-observables as hypothetical tools, and from that they have developed many concepts in quantum physics, which is showing much which has given much help in understanding many of the subatomic phenomena. One of them is very simple one that we always study, is the phase. We do not know what is the phase of a particular wave function, because it cancels out when we take the complex conjugate. But then we have to assume it, because without that we cannot work with those equations. But it works well, and we can also find it with respect to color degree of freedom, and there are many other aspects of quantum mechanics. So in physics, we have used this idea of non-observables to explain some of the actual findings. But in case of biology, we are facing much problems when we have to talk about intelligence or concepts that are being involved there. So this question of cognition or consciousness is very hard to explain for these non-conceptual approaches. Why? This is explained by Dr. Sripad Bhaktivedanta Puri Maharaj, who gave us all this knowledge, and whom we find as very scholarly, intelligent, and deeply intelligent. And specifically, he served Srila Bhakti Raksha Dev Goswami Maharaj, who was the foremost sannyasi and disciple of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, who was well known all over the world for his highly philosophical, intelligent explanations to phenomena and reality. Puri Maharaj says, furthermore, modern science develops its theories, concepts of nature as if consciousness side of the empirical perceptions has no contribution to the data of observation, when in fact it is essential to it. Science has left out the role of the scientist in its picture of nature. This is the dualistic conception of reality in which consciousness is isolated from its objects. So, like for example, they say, is there mind? And if it is mind, how can we understand it as body, or how to harmonize mind and body? But why this kind of language is coming up? Because they don't understand how to overcome this duality, because they have taken a reductionistic approach, taken as the molecule itself as everything, and trying to explain everything from that. But in truth, many important physicists have now explained that these what we call as elementary particles are not really elementary, because they don't last always. These particles last for some time and then they become fluidized, or they become what to say, something lost in the field. So how can we say the elementary particles is something fundamental when physics itself is denying that? Then in biology you're trying to construct the whole what to say approach based upon these elementary particles like atoms and molecules is something contradictory. This is because a real communication is not happening. The real impact of this actual developments of science are not really understood. So that is the problem in understanding terms like consciousness, cognition, intelligence, etc. So this is one experiment that I sometimes have discussed about. Actually, we have two concepts: life comes from life. Other question is matter comes from life, because we see when we begin our approach, we say there is something. There are some objects which are living, and there are some objects which are non-living. But then, how to understand this? What to say? This divide between living and non-living. So, where is the unity between the two? So it requires. So the philosophical aspect or the Vedantic aspect understanding is that everything is coming from from life. Even matter is coming from life. So some experiment was done on nutrition, where some mass balance was done, mass energy balance between input eating of food and there's energy expenditure, and it was always found. This is the work of Webb, that in many of the experiments, about 13 of the experiments out of 27, there was a significant difference between the input and output of mass energy. It could not be, what to say, accounted for. So this discrepancy, he called it as QX. And you can see this calculation was, you can see the work of Webb if you like to go to the internet and find out. The reference is given here. So it means the life can produce matter from, and this is, I mean, from the Vedantic, what to say, syllogistic or syllogisms or Vedantic, what to say, axioms, it could be explained in this way. However, modern science has not been able to explain the problem of nutrition or the mass energy discrepancy. And they try to explain that by saying some kind of a, what to say, by averaging over a large number of experiments, or by taking a, so but that averaging does not work, because life works at an individual level, and you must also explain the individual experiments. And so that discrepancy has been noticed in prominent journals also. So here is Werner Heisenberg, and he said, we have to remember that what we observe in nature is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning. I think that modern physics has definitely decided in favor of Plato. Atoms or elementary particles themselves are not real. They form a world of potentialities or possibilities, rather than one of things or facts. So that means when we are trying to take the whole as if we are studying the atom, we are seeing the atom itself, we are seeing the electron itself. But in truth, has anybody seen an electron? Actually, nobody has seen an electron. There are just some experimental findings, and from that we infer that because there is some mark, a particle must have passed through the cloud chamber, and through some other properties, and we infer a concept of particles. So what we are inferring as particle is nothing but something which we are seeing through our knowledge, through our concepts. So our concepts, our knowledge shows us the reality. If our knowledge changes or improves, we will see the same reality in a different way. So this is the understanding, and this is a philosophical, what to say, it concurs with the more philosophical approaches towards reality, that there is a contribution of knowledge to what we call as objective. That means the subject and object are never separate. They're always related, united. And we have to see this unity in distinction, unity in difference. We have to learn this language, then we can have a more philosophical and proper tools to understand these subjects. So Socrates, very important philosopher. After Socrates, during the Greek period, there were some others like Stoics, and then the people's conception was always changing till modern times, and so many changes have occurred. But Socrates clearly gave 4 arguments: the problem of change, the nature of change is orderly, not random, the problem of perfection, and from the problem of recognition, he said that the material realm, or just concepts of atoms and molecules in modern language, will not be sufficient to explain reality. So the problem of materialism is that it is taking for granted that consciousness could be explained from matter. Yet the Platonic Socratic view clearly explains that we cannot explain the problem of recognition from merely a material explanation based upon the notion of prior experience. So this is a famous question of recognition, which was highlighted by Socrates. And how do we say a cow is a cow? Sometimes we never see a cow previously, but still somebody recognizes that object as something which he has not seen before. So how does this recognition occur? So where is the, what you say, sufficiency in explaining it in terms of remembrance or memory or just prior experience? The whole concept of cognition or consciousness is more foundational than that. So therefore, what we need, a new approach, is to see nature conceptually. It is not sufficient to see nature as particles and DNA or something, but we need a conceptual approach, and we have to apply that in our day-to-day life. And when we see results, that will be scientific and practical. So in nature, we see the concepts of self and self-externality. So let me not read this. I think if you want to know about this, my slides are there. You can study it on your leisure time. So the conclusion is this, and this is from Hegel's idea. Actually, Hegel was a philosopher of Germany, and he was a very deep philosopher. Sripad Puri Maharaj always says that he is the best philosopher, and whatever Plato, Socrates have done, you can find all of that in the work of Hegel. And his things are available on the internet also. A lot of number of books are being also written, and popularity of Hegel's approach is being seen today in many walks of life. I have personally seen many young students of America, of Europe, India, they are taking interest in Hegel's philosophy, and a lot of discussions are going on nowadays. So he says, when we talk about life we have talked essentially in terms of organisms, not as a machine. And when we talk about the organism, the form of the organism, we see a unity between its parts and its whole. That means there's unity between seed, between the tree, between the fruits. And so because they are not externally related, they are not related by some external forces, they are not actually parts, but they are members. So it requires the concept of the ideal. So that means the parts are mutually related as co-producing moments of the one whole. Like we have the concept of a species, we have a cow. Now cow has a horn, eyes, it has a tail, it has so many organs. But how can you say that how these things are related? They are not manufactured as a machine from outside, but we see the concept of the life of cow itself is producing the cow. It is ingrained in the concept itself. It is nothing external to it. So therefore, their real differentiation and division is ideally and necessarily reintegrated into the unity of their common purpose. So therefore, life is more purposive. It involves concepts of self-determination, cognition, intelligence, unity in distinction, etc. Thus, both seed and the plant produce each other and are necessary for the whole. They are inseparable from the concept of the species. The logic cannot be further simplified to linear causal chain. So this circularity of causality cannot be made more simple, like first cause, second cause, third cause. You cannot talk like that. The causes are co-producing, codependent, the chicken and egg logic. Thus, life is an infinite process of determining itself to particularity. This was discussed by Puri Maharaj in detail. So let's go to next slide. So Hegel does not hold that organic life emerges in nature in time from the processes characterized in the preceding stages of mechanism and chemism. Rather, they are coexisting, qualitatively distinct, and mutually external stages of nature. That is, the chemical processes do not renew themselves on their own. Chemism thereby do not give rise to organic life. So we will not be able to get a living cell from chemistry, from abiogenesis, like what Kant told. There will never be a Newton for the blade of grass. So how can we understand what is the evidence for this? What is known as telos or purpose, or what Kant told as Naturzweck. In German, Zweck means something, an artifact, but Naturzweck means an artifact of nature, not artificial, something nature is producing, something intrinsic. So Kant had discussed in great details, but somehow he could not progress to the extent Hegel explained later. But he explained that in Kant's discussion of itself, the concept of telos, the evidence for telos is available. The first point is that is a reciprocal relation between the part and the whole. The chicken is necessary for the egg, and the egg is necessary for the chicken. The seed is necessary for the tree, and tree is necessary for the seed. So this is known as a reciprocal relationship. DNA and RNA. DNA is necessary for RNA synthesis, RNA is necessary for DNA synthesis. Which is first, which is second? Big fight in modern science, and they cannot decide. They are in camps, but they will never be able to settle this problem, because it is a question of reciprocal relations. Then every organism assimilates from the environment by which the system of life develops, maintains, and objectifies itself. So that means every organism has this feature of self-preservation or assimilation from environment. And reproduction. Now, what is this reproduction? Is the principle of self-preservation of the species. That means even though the individual members are dying, but the species is preserving itself in terms of by the concept of reproduction. So in this way, we can understand that life is teleological, or it has a teleologically driven, whereas Darwinian evolution or modern evolution is based upon a supposition about the history of organisms, and there are many defects in that history. The evidences don't correlate, so it's a speculation about how the organisms might have come. But as far as teleological understanding is concerned, we can see in these three that it is complete and scientific explanation of the life processes. So concluding, now what is the Vedantic view? The Vedantic view is that there is no evolution of bodies. That is, a dog is not becoming a monkey, or monkey is not becoming a man, but rather there is the evolution of consciousness. That means as you learn the deeper meaning of life, then the consciousness develops. So it progresses through various species of life. But in human form of life, there is a great, is a deciding moment of life. Human life is very precious. It has to be taken very seriously. Specifically in modern science, it is um, influencing so many young people, and people are becoming like godless, or people are becoming atheistic. This has to be checked, because human life has the responsibility to understand. Otherwise, when the precious human life is lost, then you may have to go back to some lower forms of life. So the other aspect is the Vedantic cosmology. It will give us additional light why Darwinian evolution thought has not been very strong, that influence has not been very strong in India. In America, for example, everyone believes in some form of evolution theory in the college students. But in India, if you see, people are having some another type of also upbringing. That's why they don't think about Darwinism so much like in the West. And this is my final slide. So the central conception of Vedanta is known as the concept of the organic whole. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. Srila Maharaj used to say, it is very easy to think something gross can come from something fine. But it is very difficult to understand that something fine can come from something gross. So from the whole can come, like we can see that the life living organism is producing this body, and the body is producing so many chemicals. The citrus fruit is producing the citric acid, which is outside the living organism, just a collection of chemicals. So life can produce matter, but where is the evidence that some citric acid can produce a lemon? There's no such evidence. So matter also comes from life. Life evidently comes from life. In this regard, Srila Rupa Goswami has mentioned this thing, that there are actually 64 arts in Vedanta. In Bhagavatam it is mentioned. And among them, mechanics is called Yantra Matrika Vidya, that is physics and mechanics comes under that category. And chemistry is called Akara Vidya. But there are many other branches of conception in the Vedantic view. There are totally 64 arts, 64 kala, they say. So life is not coming under this Yantra Matrika or Akara Vidya. It is another higher category of reality. So life cannot be explained from merely mechanism or chemistry. So the Vedantic view does not see universe as a gigantic machine. It is based on the sentient concept of stage-wise development, following the logic of the organic whole. Like the seed, example of the seed is very important. Even in the Vedantic conception, universe is like a seed in the beginning, and from the seed, it has all the information, concept necessary to develop into the whole gigantic universe. So, therefore, what we need is to develop some respect for a more conceptual approach. After all, the responsibility of education is not just to fill our bellies with some rice and dal, but to do some real good for the purpose for which we are born as human beings. And for that, so much conception has been given, so much guidance is available, but we have unfortunately neglected them in the wake of this mechanistic approach. But being encouraged by the very development within the biology itself or the frontier science, we must be open to relook into the more conceptual approaches given in both India as well as in the Western countries, concepts of Hegel, Immanuel Kant, and reintegrate them with the findings of modern science, and it will do a great good for all of us. Thank you. My class is over, is it? Yeah, thank you.
Is the moderator is this session?
And Dr. Chandrasekhar.
Is there? Dr. Jagannathan?
Yeah, I'm there. Yes, yes, I'm there. But I request Dr. Jagannathan to do my job.
Okay. So I could not see any questions on the screen. If there are any questions, people can.
I can see some questions are there
Yes,
No,
yes.
I am not able to see.
in the chat.
Can I read my question?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, one
Yeah,
question.
please say your question.
Yeah, during, I have already said that during early evolution of life, around 3.8 billion, there was mostly no life on the earth. How did the first life originated under extreme weather conditions? Was it a physico-chemical enviro entity? This is question to Dr. Muni.
Okay. So can I answer?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So we have discussed at great length that why
It was a wonderful lecture. I would say it was a wonderful lecture, and I learned a lot of things.
thank you so much. So this is a very what to say general question that everyone asks us whenever we are going for some talks or so. Basically, you see, this is a statement about the history of the organism, that life arose some billions of years ago in that form, maybe a cyanobacteria or whatever. They speculate
It
many
was
things.
basically stromatolitic carbonates, which evolved around 3.5 billion years ago, which
Yes.
actually basically the principle is based on photosynthesis. They were chemoautotrophs. Okay,
Yeah.
but your conception is certainly great. I respect that. But anyway, if
Yeah.
you
So
can,
we have to understand this
we
question.
did a lot of work with UCLA, with Bill Shaw, and there are a lot of literature on early evolution of life.
Mhm. Yeah. So this 3.8 billion years ago, the life was first originated.
Yeah,
That's what is being, because from the fossil records, basically,
yeah.
they make some kind of experimental studies. So
No, these are present in the rocks, stromatolitic
yeah,
rocks.
I understand. I understand.
There are the evidence, physical evidence of
Yeah.
stromatolic presence in India, Australia, and several parts of the world.
Yes.
We know their age; they are about more than 3 billion years ago.
Yes. So 3.8 billion years ago, these organisms are present. That is one thing we can accept. Fine. Now,
Yeah.
whether other living forms are present or not at that time, how can we say that?
No, the stromatolites are basically they are biogenic molecules. They are biogenic, and they work on the photosynthetic process.
Yeah, I know. I understand your logic,
Yeah.
but this is to say the concept of what to say abiogenesis. This basically, which says that the first life could have come in this form by because there was some kind of a
That
lack
is
of
our
oxygen.
concept, but I don't argue with your concept.
No, so now only thing we can say from here is that there is evidence of life even 3.8 billion years ago. There is only thing we can say, but we cannot say whether life evolved at that time because they are all speculations. Whether there was a environment like that, whether there was a anaerobic atmosphere, whether it was a first arose in the salt or in the deep oceans. These are all various theories. And so they are basically speculative statements about how life could have arose from chemicals to substantiate evolution. But to actually say that they could have arose in that way, a scientific definition needs a what to say evidence of development of life from chemicals, and we have no evidence that even a single cell can be produced in any laboratory of the whole world. You can take any laboratory of the world
How about you say about Miller-Urey experiment? What they
The
did?
same thing, Miller-Urey did some experiment, they produced amino acids. They didn't produce life.
They produce amino acids.
Amino acids, that's all. That we have no problem with. But the concept of life itself, which involves the whole cell, the egg is different from an amino acid. Amino acid by itself does nothing. DNA molecule does nothing actually outside the cell. But when it is a part of the integrated whole, then it is functioning as an intelligent member of the concept of that species, that organism. But if to say that the whole intelligence is in the DNA, whole information is coming only from the DNA, is a mechanistic reductionistic approach, and that's what we are challenging in our forum. That
I think Dr. Muni, you are based in Bangalore. If you allow me, I'll come sometime after this pandemic goes, and we will have detailed discussion, because I'm a geologist and you are a biologist. So maybe we can have a detailed discussion about this. I know your concept, I know my concept. So probably great thinking, instead of now.
Yeah.
So I'll come down sometime, maybe once things get settled.
Sure. We are really very happy. We welcome you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I'll show you my work, and then I have seen your work. It's a great lecture, I would say. And I believe in Vedanta, and I believe in Vedanta theory.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
We'll move to the next question.
Okay.
The question is from Dr. Ramesh. Machine will work, all parts are functional and energy linked. Organisms will work, all parts are functional, energy linked. Life will work, all parts are functional, energy linked. And consciousness or Chaitanya. Hello, please, no crosstalk, please. Energy is center from being, bang to current. Question to Dr. Muni and others. This is the question.
Okay, thank you for your question, Sri Ramesh ji.
Linking to energy, linking with energy.
Yes, so it's okay, you have put that question. But whenever we talk about something, some entity, and its functioning, we have to study three things. First, how it came into being, that means how it originated. Then what is the process, and finally, what is the result. So here, when you say that machines, all parts are functional and there's some energy link, and you are comparing it with organisms, then you have to know the difference also. The parts are not coming together in an organism like a machine. In machine, let's say a bicycle. I have a tire, I have a nut, I have a bolt. Then I just take a spanner and I just tie up the nut bolts, put a chain and put the pulleys, and then I construct a bicycle. But still, that bicycle, its its joining or its unity is coming from the nuts and bolts. And the bicycle has nothing of its own purpose. The bicycle, what is the function of a bicycle? Do you know function of a bicycle? Bicycle has no function. The function of the cycle is in the rider. The rider uses the bicycle to go some distance. So the functioning or the telos of the mechanical system is something external. Now come to organism. Now how the organism is coming to being. In the beginning, there is a cell. Now people have these mitosis, meiosis, these details. They think that there is some kind of a DNA molecule and there is some kind of a division of the DNA molecule. Two strands are coming out. Each strand is becoming two daughter cells, 2.2 DNA molecules again. From that, this whole cell is developing. They think like this. But in truth, it was never the DNA molecule alone. The whole cell is functioning together. All the components, everything is necessary for that function to manifest. It is the DNA molecule to become two DNA molecules and the cell to become two cells. The whole thing is a holistic process. We have focused only on the DNA molecule. This is our myopic view. This is our limited view. But actually the whole thing is acting, functioning holistically. Then other thing is that where is the purpose in the cell? Where is the function in the cell? The functioning of the cell is coming from the cell itself. It is not coming from some another cell or from another organism. So the difference between a mechanism, a bicycle, and a cell is this: its function is with itself, whereas the bicycle has a function for some external agent. So that's what we are saying. Machines and organisms are not. It is not sufficient to say only energy or materials. It is also important to see the telos, the purpose, the logic, and we will find that I have put one full slide on that difference between machines and organisms. So if you go back, you can look into it and you will get detailed idea. Thank you. And you talked about consciousness also. Yes, so organisms are conscious. At least we can say in modern people's language, they're intelligent. They display, intelligence again, what's definition? That means they can solve problems. Organisms can routinely solve problems. For example, they overcome obstacles. If you see a plant, it follows the sun, from morning to evening, the sunflower. It follows the sun. It goes and then it optimizes its growth towards the direction of sun so that every part will receive sunlight, So we can say many examples of problem solving in organisms. But a mechanical system, it never has any problem. It doesn't solve a problem, So there are many examples like this. So consciousness is a detailed topic. It's a point of attachment. So, but at least from a mechanical approach or from that foundation, we can discuss some preliminary aspects. And later on, when we have more understanding of these topics, we can also discuss more higher levels of consciousness studies. Thank you.
The final one in your question is energy is the center from Big Bang to the current.
Yeah, so again, Big Bang, the same thing. There are 2 or 3 theories that are more popular among Big Bang theory. One is the M theory, other is the Big Bang nuclear synthesis. So many other theories are there about the initial appearance of molecules and atoms like lithium and hydrogen and things like that, nuclear processes. And but again, you have some information coming from some cosmic background, and from that we make an estimation that the Big Bang could have happened at such a time, or Big Bang might have had happened. But in detail, what exactly happened is all a speculation. We don't even know whether we can travel to some distant planets, whether we can, whether life exists in some of these other planets. So many other questions are there which we cannot answer. But we think that somehow Big Bang was there in a mechanistic way. The problem of singularities, which cannot be solved in physics. Physics can't talk about the point of beginning of the universe because it has the problem of singularity. And how they solve these problems. They have some equations, let's say equation for gravity, and then they have some singularity. Singularity means in the integral, there will be some kind of a zero or a pole, and they use some complex analysis to solve that problem. And when they get some solution, they want to speculate. But these are all mathematical imaginations about the beginnings. And we have no evidence to say that Big Bang could have happened in a mechanistic way or like a blast way, because we don't even know what is the opposing force of gravity. So, for example, we say today, the scientists are saying that the universe is expanding. But is it forever expanding or it is going to collapse? So they are talking in terms of only gravity, which is only attractive. But what is the repulsive aspect of that? So that's why the question of explosion. But really, there's a lack of understanding of gravity in all of these questions. Even now, what is happening is there are 2 major problems in modern science, physics, modern science. First is the problem of consciousness, other is the problem of gravity. So some scientists, they are proposing that this somehow the consciousness and gravity can be related. They are one and the same thing. But again, that is a speculation. And according to Vedantic view, gravity is not the same thing as consciousness. Even if they solve the problem of gravity, the problem of consciousness remains. So there are 2 separate problems. So the other aspect is that if you think Big Bang theory happened like that, then consciousness emerged from that. But then it does not solve the problem of singularity. Whereas, and it again speculates about the origin of consciousness. So we have no real understanding in physics actually.
We
To
have,
understand what?
we have the last question because due to cause of time, we have to end into the last question. The last
Are
question
there
is,
soul?
ah,
Are there soul in every living cell, or one
this is a
soul
good question
controlling the
for you.
whole body?
Be able to get through and we can go for the next talk.
Yeah, there are so many souls actually. And the other thing is, the soul is not what to say in the physical plane actually. We cannot understand that.
Okay, I will dispute. There are no so many souls. Okay, you go ahead. That we will discuss later.
Yeah, let
So
me answer this. Let me answer this first.
there is the supreme
As,
soul.
as
And
I
there is,
as I understood.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so there are innumerable souls,
yes. No,
and
any model I don't accept. You go ahead with your answer.
okay, and yeah, so the controller. So we have some control over our bodies, though the other souls which are working inside the body, they may have also their controls within their domains. But really, if you see deeply, even we are not controlling our body. Even we are not in our control. For example, how do we understand our heart is beating? How the food is being digested? If we have some health problems, you can't even digest some potato or rice. So how can you say that you are controlling? But you have some kind of a which is called a false conception, or it's called ahankar in Sanskrit, that I am this body, I am the controller of this body. But we have to deeply understand these holistic concepts of how consciousness is being attached to this organism or this body, and how we are functioning. So we have to talk about many levels of concepts here, like the body, the mind, intelligence, ego, and behind that consciousness, and behind consciousness is prakriti, what kind of nature is acting behind that type of consciousness, the paraprakriti and the aparaprakriti. So we are not really the controllers. Gita has clearly mentioned this, that ahankar vimudatma kartaham iti manyate, that because of false ego only we are thinking we are controlling this body. In truth, we are not able to control this body. Thank you.
Okay, so I think with this we will end the questions, and next speaker also we can ask the questions because that is also similar kind of talk. So you can preserve if anybody has any questions or continuation we can do in the next talk also. Yeah, let us
Thank
move
you so
forward.
much. Thank you, Dr. Jagannathan.
Thank you so much, Dr. B.V. Muni and Dr. Jagannathan, for an insightful session. Moving ahead in this talk, we now would like to introduce Dr. Bhakti Niskama Shanta, and moderator for this session, which is talk number 4, is going to be M.V. Jagannathan. So may I take an opportunity to introduce Dr. Bhakti Niskama Shanta and Dr. Jagannathan. Dr. B.N. Chand earned his undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering from Utkal University in 2000. He obtained a master's degree in fluid and thermal science from Mechanical Engineering Department of the Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati in 2003. Dr. Shant has obtained a PhD in coastal hydrodynamics from Ocean Engineering Department of IIT Kharagpur in 2008. He worked as an invited scientist for Korea Ocean Research and Development Center from May 2007 to May 2008. While working on his PhD, Dr. Shant met his Diksha Guru, Srila Shripad Bhakti Swarup Damodar Goswami Maharaj, a PhD. He thereby became inspired to humbly serve Srila Shripad Maharaj's scientific Sankirtan mission. After the disappearance of Srila Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, it was under the guidance of Shripad Bhakti Madhav Puri Maharaj, PhD, that Dr. Shant could intimately participate in the mission of his Guru. Let me also take an opportunity to introduce Dr. M.V. Jagannathan again, who is going to be the moderator of this talk. Dr. M.V. Jagannathan received BSc Bachelor of Science Chemistry Mains from SVRK Government Degree College, Nidadavolu, affiliated to Andhra University, Vishakhapatnam, and MSc
Maybe we can
Master of
skip
Science
this.
from.
We already heard.
Okay,
Yeah, we can get
okay,
into the talk.
okay, sure, doctors. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, may I request Dr. Shanta to please commence the talk. Thank you so much.
Let us offer our humble prayers to our Guru Varga. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jaina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So I'm going to present on the topic of organic holism is the concept of life and reality. So in the modern science, we are talking about things as if they are isolated from each other and the entire reality. The unity is being not considered from their perspective of the purpose. What purpose the individual entity exists. When we talk about organic holism, then there everything is related to the purpose of that whole. The participating members, they're related to the purpose of that whole. So we are simply studying electron, proton, atoms, molecules, all those things endlessly without even understanding how those all and even we ourselves is related to the whole. What is our role in the reality? And that is completely being ignored in this process of endlessly gaining knowledge in the realm of reductionistic understanding of the truth. So in modern science there is no clear understanding about the difference between life and matter. They think that life can be understood like they understand machines. Machines are produced by joining the parts. They are produced externally and then they join those parts, and there is some external forces involved which they consider as the unity. And then chemical reactions that we see, the chemical bonding which act as the unity for different chemicals. But when you come to the Department of Biology, somehow the Department of Biology also become the Department of Physics and Chemistry. They completely ignore the principle that separates or distinguishes clearly from non-living realm. I mean, dead body and living body, there are atoms, molecules are there, the DNA, RNA, all those things are there. But we are studying only those atoms and molecules, but we are not able to grasp what makes it animated, what makes a cell a cell. The cell has all those chemicals, dead cell and living cell, but what is that that distinguishes a dead cell from the living cell? So that is not understood merely in terms of mechanical or chemical logic. So this is one of the biggest problem in modern science. And when you don't keep that distinction, then the clear respect that individual can have for life, we don't have that type of respect for machines the way we use it. If you say the life and non-life are the same thing, then where is the respect is coming for the life? We cannot able to respect. Now, if you are doing some chemical reactions in the laboratory and you also think that life is just a chemical reaction, then how can we have a respectful vision to other life forms, our parents, or even other animals or creatures? So that is one of the major question that people are not thinking when they are talking about this type of illogical or irrational ideas that life is just a a combination of atoms and molecules, or it is just a product of, physics and chemistry, you can say. So the educational system, it transformed into a materialistic, education, where matter become the major focus of our, education. People are not being given education about understanding life in a more scientific and, thinking about the purpose of life. What is the goal of life? Those all things are not being considered seriously, because when you are thinking about atoms, molecules, machines, then that type of inner purpose, as Dr. Muni was also discussing, that does not display. A machine don't have any inner purpose. Chemicals don't have any inner purpose, but life has an inner purpose. So that purposive aspect is completely eliminated in this materialistic, way of education. Previously, when people were going to Gurukul, then they were being encouraged to ask about, question about their own self. Who am I? Why I'm suffering in this world? What is the goal of life? All those things were the central inquiry, what you can say, basis for education. That was the basis. But at present, our, education become, more centered around earning, money, and some kind of comfort, bodily comfort, and all those things. But they are not being seriously encouraged to think about something beyond this body, or in the molecules that body made up of. They are just think about this body, but the body is there in the dead. When we become dead, the body is there, the molecules are there, everything is there. But for we are, doing all this, studies. But the man is gone, they say. Man dies, man is gone. Then what is, the gain of that man? What is the goal of that man? All those things are not being, studied in modern educational system, even in the Department of Biology, because they somehow teach people this, concept that life is nothing more than some random accumulation of molecules. Either it is mechanical or chemical accumulation. So Francis Bacon is the person who, encouraged this idea that we can have a power control over nature. We can control the nature. And Descartes, further, told that we can find the secret and of the nature and change the nature and use it for our purpose. And nature, the controlling nature become the major focus of modern science. And we are seeing that now. It is not the case that we tried so much, but nature is not under our control, but we are under the control of nature. You see, the coronavirus put all of us in the room. We have so advanced technology, atom bombs, and, all these satellites, so many, electronic gadgets and everything. Yet a small invisible virus forced whole world stay indoor. So are we in control of nature, or nature is controlling us? Anybody can understand what scientists we all can do when there is earthquake is coming, the tsunami is coming. Is there anything that we can do? The environmental pollution is creating so much of problem. So any intelligent, rational person would think that nature is not under our control. And even in biology, the concept of, mechanically controlling cell in terms of, some genome, some code-based idea, that is replaced by also the concept of environmental determinism. Environment determines. It's not just gene. There are studies on twins which have the identical genetic material, identical twins, and yet in the same environment they develop different personality, different behavior, different kind of nature they develop. So what makes that distinction? If the gene are the same, environment is same, then what is that extra element is there that distinguishes? They make them two different personalities. So all these things are not being seriously considered in modern education. And Darwin, the Descartes' idea was that only human has the soul, and other non-human animals, what they say, they all don't have soul. And the followers of Descartes, they did so much of painful experiments on animals, and the animals reacted to those all, harsh treatment, and they rejected all those reactions, that the individual and the organisms may, experience. So they say that the gear that is making noise due to lack of, lubricant, that and this, living entity are reacting, they're one and same, a mechanical, idea. So this type of vision is being, what you can say, practiced. And you see that all that idea of animal, what you can say, so much harsh treatments in experiments, and so many, the industrial scale of, harassments that we see towards animals, because of this type of idea that animals are something, of lesser value. They are not so much important. They are giving so much harsh treatment. And then the concept of soul that is there in Descartes' idea in human being, that is even replaced by Darwin when he said that life first originated from a primordial, or say warm little pond. So everything came by some random accidental, mutational changes of evolution, including human being. They came from, that evolution from chemicals up to human beings. So there is no concept of soul that we find in this type of, idea. So the root of materialism is to teach that, this idea of abiogenesis, life came from matter. When they say that man is in just an enclosed membrane of chemicals, then what kind of, any even respectful, vision one can have for each other, and what kind of bioethics and any other things that we can attach to life and goal and all those things. So it becomes a materialistic education, and there we are being only looking for some immediate biological need: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So the education conditioned us to think this way, because of, this type of idea being, taught to us from a very beginning in our education. And many young peoples, they gone away from religious views, which is authentic, and they taken up this materialistic view as we are all chemicals, atoms and molecules. That's the thing they're talking about. They're not talking about anything called mind, intelligence, false ego, consciousness. There is, purification of consciousness. All these things are not being, properly studied in modern time. We lost all those things. So this objective evolution theory, it produces a loss of faith in religion, which comes with a whole tradition of moral teaching. So materialism in science does lead to moral degradation. This is one of the important things that we should know. And there was this idea of spontaneous generation of life that was there in the history in heterogenesis and abiogenesis. They are the two concepts. They were thinking life can originate from organic, stuff like, meat, rotten meat. Life can originate, and many big personalities were having this type of idea, like Newton, Harvey, and Descartes, and so many others. They were accepting this type of idea until Francisco Reed demonstrated by his experiment that meat placed under a screen of muslin never developed maggots. You can see here there are 3 jars where the meat is being placed. One is kept open, and then, in that open jar, there are insects that are being developed after due course of time when the meat gets rotten. And after, there is another jar where the top of that jar has, some screen. And because the smell is coming, the insects were developed on the screen of that, jar. But other one, when it is sealed, like airtight, then there were no insects. And Louis Pasteur also famously, done this in experiment, swan neck flask experiment, to demonstrate how the life can only come from life, biogenesis. And then after his experiment, he told, never will the doctrine of spontaneous generation recover from the mortal blow of this simple experiment. He did a very simple experiment about life come from life, which is evidently visible to all of us. We can see that we are all coming from living entities. There is no living form which can claim that it is originated from some reactions of chemicals or assembly of parts like a machine, a bacteria or a dog or a frog, even a cell. It does not come by that process. So it is not something unscientific. We observe it by empirical observation. We can see that. So when Louis Pasteur given that idea of biogenesis, then Darwin and other his followers, they thought, yes, we can follow this idea of biogenesis, but not for the first life. Life is always coming from life, but first life somehow came from non-life. That was the idea that Darwin introduced in his letter to Joseph D. Hooker in 1871. He stated, it is often said that all the conditions for the first production of a living organism are not present, which could ever have been present. But if, and oh, what a big if, we could conceive in some warm little pond with all sort of ammonia and phosphoric salts, light, heat, electricity, etc. present, that a protein compound was chemically formed, ready to undergo still more complex changes. At the present, such matter would be instantly devoured, which would not have been the case before living creatures were formed. So he speculated about this idea that in past there was some atmosphere where somehow these all chemicals, they got together, and the first life originated in warm little pond. So Darwin played this role about talking about abiogenesis. And his evolution theory, he wanted to make it consistent and materialistic in the sense that how even the chemicals developed that ability to adapt. That idea is coming from this warm little pond concept. But we cannot apply that concept of mutation or adaptability to a piece of matter. Matter don't adapt to the things the way in a living organism adapt. There are further difficulties as far as evolution from one form to another form is concerned, but still when we talk about adaptability, how that adaptability can explain the production of first life form from a piece of dull inanimate matter. So that is not understood even in terms of his theory. And Darwinists and his followers, they were thinking that it is a very rare event. It happened once and very rare event in the earth, and that was their idea. But there was a paper which is being published in Science journal in 1990 by Mitchell Waldrop. So it says, early Earth was a violent, nasty place. When life was getting underway, it was subjected to an asteroid bombardment far worse than anything the dinosaurs ever saw. Ever since 1871, when Charles Darwin made his oft-quoted allusion to life's beginning in a warm little pond, scientists have tended to imagine the origin of life as being a rather tranquil affair, something like a quiet afternoon in a country kitchen, which with a rich organic soup of complex carbon compounds simmering slowly in sunlight until somehow they become living protoplasm. Sorry, Charles, your warm little pond was a beautiful image. It's been enshrined in innumerable textbooks as the scientific theory of origin of life. But to hear the planetary scientists talking these days, you were dead wrong. The warm little pond never existed. Earth's first billion years did indeed see the rise of bacteria, they say, including some that were advanced enough to leave recognizable microfossils. Yet, during these years, our world was anything but tranquil. The planet endured rampant volcanism, scorching heat, and a murderous bombardment from comets and asteroids. So ghastly is the meaning, it is the emerging portrait of early Earth that many origin of life researchers now think it warrants a complete revision of the conventional wisdom. The field is in ferment, says Pennsylvania State University geologist James Casting, who chaired a Gordon conference on the origin of life this past summer, and who was co-author last year of one of the key papers dealing with early bombardments. So they are doubting if it is a rare event, then how this harsh environment the life can withstand. Life was not existing, then such a thing has to happen again and again. So that is what you can say contradicts. It's a very rare event and it happened by some chance. And also there is some thermodynamics problem. We see when we are talking about things like in nature, that the dead body, for example, if you see, the body becomes simplified. When the living organism leaves the body becomes simplified. It follows the law of thermodynamics. But when you are talking about evolution, you are talking the opposite of what is happening in nature. That is, somehow by itself the molecules become more and more complex. The long chain DNA molecule, it is very difficult to get such a thing in outside the living context. It is the cell which only produces that such type of molecules. It does not happen in the nature by some random bumping of the atoms and molecules by the forces. And Miller, when he did his experiment, he was knowing it very well. That's why when he was using that electric spark to produce all these molecules, he was not allowing them to again go back to face that spark, because he knows that if those molecules again come in touch with that spark, that same spark which created them will also destroy. Say that in the sea beach something nice is being created by the waves that are coming from the ocean, then the same waves will not create more organization. They will damage again those things. So they need some guidance. Energy needs some guidance to produce something meaningful. So there, we see, some intelligence is necessary, and that intelligence Miller had. But how the molecules can, do all those things? Even I'm talking in terms of producing biomolecules. So that is a challenge. Thermodynamics, challenge exists in the concept of, the what you can say random accumulations that lead to more organized complex molecules. And then chemical evolution, it has to face so many challenges, like this prebiotic synthesis of the soup. It has a lot of problems. Presence of carbon, absence of carbon, both have their problems. That is being well discussed, and those who are studying this field, they know that both have their own problems. And not only that, there is a choice of molecules in biological forms. In nature, we find both left-handed and right-handed molecule existing. But in life, we see amino acids have left-handed and protein have right-handed sugar. And this RNA, DNA, all these molecules. How this unique choice can happen? Molecules cannot choose that type of what you can say very specific necessity. How they can produce by their efforts. This is a big challenge. And then this RNA world, pre-RNA world, DNA world, and this primitive cell, all this facing some bigger challenges, in the sense that they are not being synthesized in nature or lying in the nature, just by some random forces producing them. The four fundamental forces that we have in science, they cannot randomly produce all these molecules. It is always inside the cell that these things are produced. Even the cell membrane, it is a very intricate and complex structure. And it is so complex that scientists are even having the proposal that it does not, it cannot be produced on the earthly atmosphere. It must have arrived from outer space. There are many concepts on that. So the chemical evolution theory is suffering many unsolvable problems. And our supposed to be next speaker, Professor Gustavo, he is an expert in this virus, He has many papers on that. And this virus is a very interesting thing. The people are talking about the concept that how virus originated, that is a mystery to them, because it's always what they found, that the virus somehow has to enter into a cell, its genetic information, and it has to create a malfunctioning in the cell, and it is the cell which produces all those molecules that we call as virus. And there is a interesting thing that is being recorded by the scientific literature, that every living organism has at least one virus associated with it, and viruses outnumber all other life forms by at least an order of magnitude. So many such virus that we find in nature, but from where they are coming, it is a mysterious thing, and there is a biological enigma, that what came first, cell or virus. Very interestingly, this Professor Gustavo, he says, scientioanalyst Gustavo, in one of his paper, which published in Science in 2015, he says that our comparative and phylogenomic data refutes the virus first hypothesis, or the pre-cellular scenario for the origin of viruses. This proposal suggests an early origin of self-replicating viral replicons predating the origin of cells. However, the hypothesis is unsatisfactory because viruses are tightly associated with proteins, capsids, and must replicate in an intracellular environment to produce viral progeny. Fossil evidence also shows that cells appeared earlier in evolution. So something very interesting is that a cell is first and not the virus. There his studies goes around that. So even these biomolecules, the point is this: even these biomolecules, they are not found outside the cellular context. It is the cell which engineers or produces all these biomolecules. So nobody found any what you can say chance accumulation of chemicals or some kind of mechanical assembly to produce all these complex molecules, long chain molecules that we find in the living organisms. So at present we are very much confused between biology and biology. We say it is a department of biology, but we are mostly focused on abiology. We are using all mechanistic logic and chemical logic to study life. In machine, all these parts, they are having some kind of unity in terms of external forces. We can take out those parts and reassemble them by following a process of assembly. And chemical reactions, we can begin with a chemical and follow a chemical pathway to produce a particular chemical. But life is not following that type of logic. Life is always coming from life. Life does not come by either assembly of parts or chemical reactions. You cannot give some eye, leg, and kidney and heart, all those things, and say this is chicken. You can produce chicken from that. You can join like this, you assemble like this. You can do some chemical reaction to produce chicken. That does not happen actually. So this is very, very important thing that biologists must understand. They are being illusioned or deceived by completely following the path of physicists and chemists, and they miss the original concept of biology. So synthetic organisms, they are also not living machines. What is synthetic organisms? Actually, organism already there. The cell is already there. And they only do some genetic engineering for that cell. They don't synthesize cell, and they deceive people by telling all these terms of synthetic organisms. The Craig Venter Institute is very famous in creating this type of some kind of news, false news about synthetic organisms. Even Pushpamitra Bhargava, who is the founding director of CCMB, he also wrote a critique about this Craig Venter in Times of India. He told that Craig Venter has done nothing but a massive genetic engineering. When the cell is alive and you can do some engineering and the cell may adapt to certain extent to do, go on to, certain extent. But you cannot make a dead cell alive by those process of genetic engineering. You cannot put some genetic information or whatever you like inside the dead cell to make it alive. So you are not actually producing an organism mechanically. You are only doing some mechanical manipulation, and yet the cell uses it in an organic way. It does not use it in a mechanical way. Like the difference is in the machine, it is not dependent on the subject. When you say a pedal, how the pedal will be used, it is already predefined in a bicycle. But inside the cell, for example, you take your hand, the function is not defined like anything that we can tell, yes, this is for grasping. I can use the hand for playing. I can use the hand for handshake. So it depends on the organism, how it uses. So it depends on the cell, how it uses all those molecules. So this is very important distinction that people are not thinking. The fixed kind of, even in rational design, drug design, they cannot able to imitate the living context. When they inject some molecules inside the organism, they only look for one function, thing. But when they inject those things inside the cell, those molecules, the cell uses it for many purposes. So rational design fails to really, rational drug design fails to really imitate the living context actually. And this machine concept of organism is being always, critiqued even by, biologists who are believed in this atheistic view. For example, Ernest Mayr, in his book, This is Biology, who is one of the 20th century leading evolutionary biologists, he says it is a little difficult to understand why the machine concept of organism could have had such long-lasting popularity. After all, no machine has ever built itself, replicated itself, programmed itself, or been able to produce its own energy. The similarity between an organism and a machine is exceedingly superficial. And another interesting concept that James Shapiro introduced is that there is no Cartesian dualism in an E. coli cell. There were, a lot of idea. There is some information molecule and there is functional molecule. That type of idea they were having. And then they were thinking, like, the person searching the key under the lamppost. There is a story goes on in the dark, place in the forest, say, there is a lamp post is there. And you lost the key in the forest. And then because you cannot see in the darkness, you are only coming to the lamppost and searching your key around the lamppost. But how can you find the key only in the lamppost, around the lamppost? It may have fallen somewhere else. So at present, the biologists, they are looking for the secret of life only in genome, in DNA. They're thinking that all the secret is there in the DNA, but that idea is already being refuted by the modern biology. For example, James Shapiro in his article, Bacteria are small but not stupid, in that, this reference is there. He says the bacterial cell uses the multifunctional user or replicators or proteins to sense the completion of the morphogenetic process and integrate it with genome expression. Note here, as in the case of lac regulation, how operational molecules have informatic roles as well. There is no Cartesian dualism in an E. coli cell. That means protein also plays a very important role in information transfer. So we cannot have, what you can say, a gene-centered idea anymore. So there are, many other, parameters that plays a vital role in all the molecules or all the so-called molecules in the cell. They play an important role in transforming information. They say that the molecules or the chemicals in the cell, they talk with each other inside the living cell. They talk with each other. They communicate with each other. So there is a problem in this because we cannot apply any linear logic, DNA first or protein first, chicken first or egg first, replication first or metabolism first. There's so many such problems you can find in origin of life research. because they are applying mechanistic logic or chemical logic, linear logic, but life follows a circular logic. So this is very important distinction. So abiogenesis, it faces a problem as far as information and causality is concerned. The scientists, when they say it all happened by some random accidents, it all depends on probability. For example, you go to a sea beach and you find these stones arranged, which looks like a letter, family. And one scientist comes and tells, yes, how this came? It came by some, probabilistic, accumulation of the stones. There may be probability for producing this, kind of arrangement. There is some probability is there, no problem. But is it rational to think that this thing came by some, random accumulation of, some these stones? By you are driving a car and the car wheel thrown the stones and the stones arranged in this way, which looks to you like family. And even though they arranged those things, how that concept of meaning is coming from there? It is family. The stones don't have the idea of that meaning. It has it looks like a the word family. It does not come from there. So there is there's a lot of these problems as far as the informatic idea is concerned. Like this Maxwell's demon idea, that the reduction of entropy is possible when the demon somehow intelligently what you can say separates from a small opening the fast and slow molecules, so that entropy can be reduced. But the demon is a sentient being. That the consciousness or the intelligence, from where it is coming for this organization, that is not being studied in this abiogenesis study. The abiogenesis study only says about random forces and accumulation of the these all forces, mechanical or chemical accumulation. It does not talk about intelligence there. So this is very important distinction. So we have written one article, Sorry Darwin, Chemistry Never Made the Transition to Biology, and we presented it in 100 Science Congress at Calcutta, which is being organized, Indian Science Congress. And we have demonstrated how there is no pathway from chemistry to biology. It's a mistake of the Darwin, and people are blindly following that. And if they look at each of those steps or whatever things that they're discussing, there are many unsolvable problems because they're unrealistic. They're unrealistic. They're following the path of chemists and physicists, but they're not thinking that life displays something unique characteristics, which is purposive in nature. So the concept of biogenesis, life comes from life, omni vivum ex vivum, omnis cellula a cellula, every cell comes from a cell that still exists and still valid, and we are ignoring that. Empirically it can be observable, and we are ignoring that. If life is always coming from the life, then what is the logical conclusion coming from there? There must be, life must be primordial. Life must be the cause of everything. But to say opposite, every day you are seeing sun is rising in the east and you say the first sunrise was from the west. Say the opposite, it becomes illogical, unscientific in that sense, where we don't have any evidence for that. So this is the concept that biology must accept for its research to studying the origin or anything. It must based on this, not something impractical or which cannot be substantiated by evidence. So we have to understand there is a concept of design that is being introduced in life also. In West especially, there is a concept of intelligent design, but the Vedic idea does not ascribe to this intelligent design concept. Actually, Professor Gustavo, he wrote a critique to our paper, Life and Consciousness, the Vedantic View, in a Communicative and Integrative Biology journal. And he tried to relate our conception with intelligent design concept, but we want to make a distinction how the Vedantic view is distinct than the view of intelligent design. Design means you have all these parts of the machine that are being assembled outside The concept of machine is there in the designer's mind, and those parts are produced outside and they assembled. But in the case of living organism, it is coming from within. The eye, the leg, the kidney, and all those things, they are not lying here, there, or they are being produced in the laboratory, and then we are coming and joining and producing a chicken or a goat, or this DNA, RNA, all these things we are producing and then joining and produce a cell. It does not come from that. The cell comes from another cell by organic developmental process. Chicken comes from a chicken by a process of reproduction. And that a machine does not follow, a designed machine does not follow the process of reproduction. A cycle will not produce another cycle. But life follows that process. It has a self-producing nature, and it has a self-modifying nature also, what Shapiro says. That means previously they thought that the DNA cannot be modified, only it can be modified by some random accident. But natural genetic engineering, the concept that he introduced, it establishes that life can, actually engineer its, constituent, things. It manipulates. It has, self, correcting thing is there. If you have a cut, wound on your body, then it heals. But a machine, it does not do that actually. You have to get some help from outside person, and the purpose of the machine is not there in the machine. It is coming from the user or the designer. But organisms have their own purpose. So these all differences are there. So we cannot apply the design concept to the organism. And those who are having some intelligence, they can easily understand these things. And people are simply deluded by all this materialistic education. They're not thinking things very clearly. So it is very essential that they have to think about these all concepts very clearly. And life displays self-determination. If you release a bird, where the bird will go, it is not determined by the forces. It is determined by the bird, where it will go. And then if you drop a paper-made bird, and then that it falls under the gravity, what kind of path it will follow. You can understand that. You can apply mechanics to study that. But you cannot apply mechanics to predict where the bird will go after 5 minutes. Even if you know the angle of release and all those parameters, the law of conservation of momentum, all those things cannot be applied, because life has its own determination. Where the bird will go, it depends on him. So you see here, President Trump having some difficulty in this managing the bird's behavior. So how the bird will behave, it's not a mechanical thing, it is a spontaneous thing, how the bird will behave. You cannot predict it by some laws that we use to study matter actually. So this is very important distinction. Because life is self-determined, so life is not produced by anything else than life itself. Life is its own cause. That we have to understand. And because matter is being dictated by some other things, then it must have some other cause. So this organic holism that is there in Sri Isopanishad, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashisate. The organic whole produces organic wholes. An organic whole cannot arise from parts that have to be assembled. That process can only produce inorganic, mechanical, or chemical processes, not living organisms. So all these organs, eye, mouth, all this, liver, kidney, all these things, they are developed in the body for meeting a particular purpose in the body. There does not exist without any purpose. They are not, produced by some, random accidents. They serve in the body as a serving member. They have a relationship. They have a purpose. And that relationship is not being, studied in mechanistic, understanding of reality. Why a thing exists? What is the purpose of it with the whole reality? That is being not studied. The reality should not be thought as a machine or a chemistry. It is following a logic of chemicals, but it is an organic system. And we know that now, the symbiotic relationship and the environmental, problems, we see that everything is related to everything else in the reality. There were very, what you can say, inseparable relations. The things are related with each other. And what is that relationship? How all things are related? What is this organic system, and how that relation can be traced? All these things can only be inquired when we accept a organic concept of reality, organic holism. If we think in terms of machines or chemistry, it is very difficult to go towards that direction. So there is also the concept of organic holism is there in Vedic cosmology also, where it is being told that when Mahavishnu breathes out, then from his body is all this the bubbles are coming up in the Karana Sagar, which acts as one universe. And then that Mahavishnu expands himself, like one cell expands into so many cells. So Mahavishnu expands himself into all this universe as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and from his navel grows a lotus flower on which Lord Brahma appears. So this is not happening by a process of design or by the process of random chemistry, but it is happening by a organic development, like our body is growing. It is happening by an organic process. It's a living process. The creation is not a mechanical process or chemical process. Vedic concept is not based on that. So it says, Ishwara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karana, Brahma Samhita. Sarva Karana Karana means the cause of all causes and the creator of all creators, transcendental or mundane. Krishna is the supreme origin. Reality is for itself and by itself. So he is for himself. So this is for means there is purpose is coming. So our concept of absolute, in science, everything is coming from purposeless atoms and molecules, but ours is based on purposive, aspect of the reality. He has a purpose that is intrinsic to him. Life has a purpose, and that purpose is not determined by any laws or anything. It has its own purpose. So original life has its own purpose, and he is self-caused by itself. Is nothing else caused. Life is not caused by anything else than life itself. This is the idea of the Vedic cosmology. There are much more details are there, but I conclude my talk here. Thank you very much for your kind participation. Namaste.
Yes, now the session is open for questions. And now I have one question here from Krishna Devadas, Krishna Keshavadas. How does Darwinian thought justify the beautiful and intricate design of peacock?
Actually, we don't have a concept of beauty ascribed to the molecules. The concept of beauty is only there existing with the organism. So the concept of happiness, satisfaction, all those things, they are not existing in the the concept of the chemistry or the mechanical accumulation of the things. So there are actually many such examples, like long tail of peacock, which is rather disadvantageous because easily the animals can catch the peacock and eat them. So why such a disadvantageous thing would develop? And what is the necessity of all those beautiful development of feather and all those things? That is not coming up from the idea of random mutation or natural selection, because you see that when you say that some random forces or the accidents, they are producing things, then they can also damage those things. It cannot produce something meaningful, something very beautiful. It is an artist who thinks about something beautiful. So there is a concept of subject has to be there. So when we talk about all these subjective terms, Darwinism faces a very big problem as far as explaining their origin. So that we know from Darwinian idea, the problem. He was also worried about the mind of human being, even the research that we are doing, the scientific research, whether this research is based on finding the truth or for the survival of the fittest. If we follow Darwin's theory, then is our scientific research is going towards the unearthing the truth, finding the truth, or the survival of the fittest. We are for doing research for survival. If you follow Darwin's theory, are we doing research for survival or for finding truth?
Yep, there is one more question from Dr. Ramesh. He is talking about consciousness. Consciousness is the phenomena for the life forms. Wherever there is life form, it will have consciousness. Is it evolved or developed in life? Come from life. Child versus grown and knowledge acquired by adult.
When you say life, always consciousness is there. Life has three things. That is Sat Chit Ananda. The eternal existence. We all wants to live. All living entity wants to live. That is the very nature that inherently there in life. And then they wants to know. Even bacteria has the concept of knowing. They learn from their experience. Bacteria learn from their experience. So they have this knowing ability. They have consciousness. The sentience they call it. Bacteria know from the mistakes. They learn it. And then they also seek some fulfillment. All life forms seek some fulfillment. Why they are working hard? What for? They're looking for some satisfaction. And that fulfillment depends on individual's development. Human seeks fulfillment in a much higher way than the animals seek. Animals are just seeking for some kind of immediate biological need, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But in the case of human being, we have all this developed aspect of seeking fulfillment in the form of science, arts, philosophy, and all those things that you will not find in animals. So without a consciousness, we cannot understand the concept of life that is there, even at the single cell. So that is the symptom actually. It is told in Bhagavad Gita that consciousness is the symptom of empirical evidence for existence of the soul. So that's what I can say about what else he said. Evolved or developed in life, come from life. Child versus grown and knowledge acquired adults. Yes, this the child actually may not have the knowledge.
Nothing to do with the maturity. These are two dependent things.
No, actually the
Consciousness
child
will be there for all the living forms.
Yes,
and the change to adult, it's only levels of maturity changing. That is, function is different. Nothing to do with.
No, but there is something different. You see, the child of human and the child of animal, there is some distinction.
That's different. That's different.
The animals, they don't need so much of training or education, but human need education. If you allow the human being, a human child, to grow in some place where the robot will take care of it by supplying food and medicine, and that type of child, when it grows into an adult, and if you make it that adult to come to the society, then that adult don't know how to relate to the society. So it needs so much training or development of the consciousness. That means consciousness can be changed and altered by association. The higher association of the beings who have higher consciousness, if you associate with them, then your consciousness will change. That's why in Vedic science there is called sadhu sangha. By the association with higher conscious people, you change your consciousness. It's not that consciousness is there and it is a fixed thing. It can be changed.
Consciousness has nothing to do with the maturity levels. See, when you are with a sadhu sangha, you will get better maturity, better understanding, and better knowledge. That is nothing to do with consciousness. Consciousness is a property of all living beings, irrespective of whether it is bacteria, or animal, or anything.
if you study even Vedic literature, there are gradations of consciousness. Sankuchita, Mukulita, Achadita, there are different gradations. You cannot say
levels of knowledge and maturity.
Yeah, you cannot say bacteria is of the same consciousness like a fish. You cannot say that. Can you say?
No. Consciousness is the property of life. Okay.
Yeah.
That consciousness each one has to its extent that requires.
Yes, but that is not all same. Then why somebody is dull? Why somebody is dull and why somebody is intelligent?
Now here the purpose of life comes into picture. The purpose of a bacterial life is different. The purpose of a human life is different. The purpose of a plant life is different. So the purpose varies, but consciousness remains the same. There is no change.
But I am asking you a question.
Everything, consciousness is the property of the life.
Then I am asking you a question. Why the person, one teacher is teaching to all the students, 10 students, why not all students understanding same way? If the consciousness is
that is their IQ. That depends on their IQ. That's what I'm telling. Everybody is consciousness. The teacher is teaching. See, all the 10 are consciousness that the teacher is teaching. But the extent of understanding to individual is different. So that understanding is different. So consciousness is the property of all life forms. But depending on the purpose, this consciousness, whether it will be inside or going out, is something that happens. When it goes out, it becomes lifeless or whatever. Consciousness can be related to that.
But consciousness has to do with
the... But this goes.
Yeah, but consciousness has to do with the object of consciousness. What object of consciousness you have? You are conscious of conscious of what?
No,
when you say just you say consciousness, just you say when you say just consciousness.
This consciousness is the Deha Bhranti, is the consciousness.
You can say whatever you like, but the very meaning of consciousness is you're conscious of something.
No. Consciousness of something is, is
so what is the meaning otherwise? What is the meaning otherwise? Conscious of what? And that determines the quality of consciousness.
A person, Ramesh want to add something. You can unmute and add.
Yes.
Ramesh want to say something.
Consciousness is, suppose a child, if it is ignorant, how he knows, is a subconscious level or superconscious level or conscious level. So consciousness is a kind of evolved during the life. So when I am in childhood, I don't know that much about the knowledge of what is the higher power, everything.
No, but if somebody beats you, in the child, if you beat him, he is conscious, he will cry.
No, he is responding. Not able.
He will enjoy that. He will enjoy that. He doesn't know. He doesn't require to know that consciousness does not have any property.
Consciousness is not like a just simple reactiveness of the action. So it is a kind of we are trying to understand consciousness.
Let me tell you, let us consider a person in coma. Is he having consciousness or not? He may not have the senses to his body, but he is still conscious inside. His body may not be responding for the external stimuli, but he still has the consciousness. Because that is the property of life.
That's what the cells, everything, what we are bringing together, it's just like assembly of all these things. If there is no consciousness, then there is no life.
Assembly has no meaning. Assembly has no meaning. That is well taken. Assembly has no meaning.
Yeah, same assembly of things. You bring these cells like a new brain cells, heart cells, everything together.
When we say somebody dead, what is gone? When we say somebody dead, what is gone?
What is gone is the consciousness gone.
No, we say life. That means he does not have the consciousness. No, at that time he does not have the consciousness about the body. Everything is gone. It is left. That is left to the body. So consciousness is only a chain from childhood to the old, and the body will be turning from young to middle age to old. This is the property of the body, not the property of the consciousness.
One thing. Let me just add something.
No, I think we have to understand a little elevated level. We have to understand this elevated level. See, the consciousness is something, it is there as you born. But thing is, how it has to go in a different stages, you know. But
No,
consciousness
consciousness does not have
some
any stage.
a number
No,
one, okay,
life,
number
no,
one
this
to
is
go
like
number 10.
electromagnetic wave. No, consciousness and life are like an electromagnetic wave. It has an electric dimension and a magnetic dimension. Okay, both will be there. So these two are inseparable. But when life or consciousness is gone, there is nothing. So it is only a property.
Now, Jagannatham, I want to ask you one question. How do you know that you are conscious?
How do you know that you are conscious? As long as I can sense the environment, I can speak to you, or I can, as long as I am arrived, I will have that consciousness.
You
Even
are
in
childhood, why you are not able to
Then you say, you know, huh?
there is no censoring, but still life is existing. See, still life is existing in the person. He is in a state of unconsciousness.
Yeah,
But
that is the
life
one.
is
I mean, see,
that's why these are two component system. That's why it is like an electromagnetic wave. There is one electric component and another magnetic component. These two components will go together.
So if you allow to listen for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
then it is possible to express others also wants to express some views. So here you see, when you say there is a conscious being, then that means it comes with knowing, and that knowing ability, that is the most important thing. The ability to know, that is not the same with everybody. You cannot say that a bacteria, the extent it can know the fish and other human being. All human beings, they don't have same knowing ability. The knowing ability of Einstein and the knowing ability of an ordinary person, they differ. Different.
How do you
knowing
distinguish
ability.
life and consciousness?
Life actually life has three properties. Life has three properties: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Existence, eternal existence, and consciousness and fulfillment. Three aspects.
So your consciousness is part of it.
Yes, and
that's what I am telling. Same I said.
That consciousness can be.
There can be people. That is what I said. Because there are more science.
So there is material consciousness, there is spiritual consciousness. So there can be different degrees of material consciousness, there can be different degrees of spiritual consciousness.
No, that is evolving. That is brain evolvement.
Please listen for some time. Then others speak, then you can speak.
Hello, Jagannathan sir.
So there is actually different degrees of material consciousness, there are different degrees of spiritual consciousness, and there is a border where the liberation is there, the neutrality, that when the yogis and jnanis, they eliminate all the objects and they go for moksha. So it is there, exploitation, renunciation, dedication. Exploitation is of different degrees and dedication is of different degrees. It is well discussed in Vedic literature, and science also knows it well, that all living entities, they don't have same ability of knowing.
I want to tell something. Jagannathan sir is telling consciousness is having some property. So property is a characteristic of something, and that can be observed and measured. So then consciousness is also can be measured and observed if it is a property, right? If you say some property, then it must be measured and observed. So consciousness is also can be measured and observed now.
No, it is not the property in the sense of physical property or a chemical property. When I use the term property, it is a general term. Consciousness is
whatever we are saying.
No, in other way you can say it's a manifestation. Instead of telling property, if you want to use a proper word, it can be a manifestation of life instead of telling property. So I use the term. That's all.
If I take some like some going to some religious things, manifestation of some god will be small and some god will be very high. Virat Swarup is very high. Why we are thinking Virat Swarup is very high? That is a manifestation of Krishna only. Krishna is manifests as a small Gopal and like a baby. That is very small. Like manifestation also have some bigger high.
No, it is like Anjaneya.
you are telling manifestation as a consciousness, then consciousness will be also will have some high and big things. Measurement will be there.
No,
Whatever.
it's not a measurable quantity like life. What is life? It's not a defined. Okay, and these two are related. Consciousness and life are related. None of them are measurable quantities.
Yeah. No, we cannot.
That is a problem. They are not measurable quantities. They are not physical entities. They are
Life means
neither
what? Life means soul.
Yeah, that's the whole question.
Then in Bhagavad Gita, they told the measurement of soul. It is like if you cut it into some kind of 10,000, some millions, it will be a small one which we cannot, our eyes cannot perceive it. It means it is having some size, right? So you cannot tell consciousness like it will be having for everybody. Everybody will have consciousness, but there will be some measurement. If you take some people who were do some research, they will have high consciousness on that subject. The
That
people
is
just
intelligence and knowledge. That is intelligence and knowledge.
Namaste. Can I add something that Bhakti Puri has said about this? So we have established, yes, life and consciousness are related. We say consciousness is a symptom of life. They are not measurable by physical properties. That is established as well.
Correct.
But consciousness is not undifferentiated. It sounds like what's being said here is this consciousness is just one consciousness, and either it's there or it's not there. But that is not the case. What Bhakti Puri has stated is that there is degrees of consciousness. Okay, so matter, we're having matter, that's all physical properties are measurable, that's matter, that's dull consciousness. That is where consciousness is. I'd like to explain, please, what Madhava Puri Maharaj has said, is matter is consciousness dialed down to zero. Like silence is directly related to sound. Silence is when sound is dialed down to zero. Matter has no consciousness by itself. It is dull. That's consciousness dialed down to zero. Then we have higher degrees of consciousness where we can talk about God and all spiritual things beyond physical property. That's higher degree of consciousness. It's differentiated level. And we can see this directly in experience because when we're awake, we can have many different conscious experience, but when we're sleeping, right, we're not dead, consciousness is still there, but the degree of consciousness is much different. It's a different state of consciousness. So it's differentiated. We can see very easily. It's not one same thing. It's degrees of consciousness. Thank you.
Now, when you say high, low, then again the measure is coming. When I say high temperature, low temperature, has no meaning.
Let us see if there are the other topics or questions. Anybody
There is
wants
one
to
question here. There is one question here.
I would just like to add one more thing about the high to low, if it's possible.
That's what Dr. Chandrasekharam was asking.
Okay, Krishna Keshav Prabhu wants to say something.
Yeah.
So you're saying that if we're mentioning high to low, that means it's measurement, and we rule that out already. But
I agree that consciousness is not measurable.
high to low means comparison. So comparison to something non-physical still allows us to have some degree of measurement, meaning but something non-physical that can be used as comparison, a standard for comparison, is degree of suffering, right? That is what the whole spiritual idea is based off of. We are here in suffering for what reason? And then we can engage in activities to alleviate suffering and lead toward more sustained fulfillment, Satchidananda. So this is a standard that we can use to measure non-material phenomena. Noumenal, right? It's called noumenal. What is beyond phenomena? What is beyond sense input? So we have a standard degree of suffering. Suffering is the lowest level of consciousness, where we have Satchidananda is highest level of consciousness. Matter is lowest level of consciousness, where it's not conscious at all. Highest level of consciousness is God consciousness. We're having self-realization. We understand Atma, Paramatma, Bhagavan. We're having devotion. We're having service. That whole thing is high level consciousness, because the degree of suffering is observably different. It's not like a ruler where we have inches. It's not physical phenomena we're talking about, but it's still a standard. There is still a standard, just an immaterial standard. So we can measure high to low consciousness based on that standard.
Now, what you mean to say, you have a zero and an infinity and you don't know anything in between.
We know that there is infinity and there is finite though.
No, there is a zero and an infinity. Non-material, material does not have a consciousness and it is zero. And God has infinity.
Right.
So there is no scale in between.
But we know that the infinite has everything inside of it. We know that that's the concept of infinity. Infinity includes everything. And we also know that we are not infinite. We can see our own limitation. If I want to come to you and sit next to you in India right now, as much as I want to do that, I cannot do that. I'm limited. So if I have this on one hand, my limited nature, and then I have concept of infinity on the other hand, where everything is included in infinity, then there is something there. We can say that. It might not be full explanation of all infinity, no problem. It's still something substantial. And we can work with that, and that will have results.
If suppose anybody asks, are you conscious? What is your answer, Jagannathan sir? If anybody asks you, are you conscious? You tell me the answer. Are you conscious? What is your answer?
I will tell you.
Are you conscious about yourself, or are you conscious about another thing? Are you conscious about some other A, some other B, some other C, or about yourself? There is a self-conscious. There may be God conscious. So tell me, what is your answer?
No. Here what the answer is, the answer is, if a person is dead, let us say, what is dead? That he doesn't, that body is zero consciousness again. There is no consciousness in that body. And life has gone.
The conscious means
consciousness comes from life.
So if you go to
may I say something?
If you go to Quranic sites, there are 5 layers of body. When you leave the body, there may be 5 layers.
Yeah.
Then the conscious will always be there for that soul.
One each. Yeah, one each speak. Yeah.
May I say something, Jagannathan garu?
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. This consciousness, what I understand from this discussion is, it is not dictionary meaning. In the society, we see several people who work for greediness and also greedy and also very highly materialistic attitude. Those people, we can say they are not conscious. Their degree of consciousness is very low. Whereas people who work towards liberation and who are non-materialistic, they have high degree of consciousness. I think it's very clear.
That is knowledge, sir. It is not consciousness. It is your self-realization.
Knowledgeable person will get degrees and awards, rewards and all, but not necessarily conscious.
No. Self-realization does not have any degree. Self-realization is the ultimate truth. And that reaching that state is not an easy job. That everybody can tell that I have
that's
reached.
Not only conscious. That's what only conscious people.
Here there is a point. Those who have reached will never say that they have reached, and those who have never reached will feel that they have reached. This is a problem.
I agree, but conscious people only can reach. That much I can say. I don't say that.
Consciousness is for every living organism will have it. Every living organism will have that. As you said, whether it is 0, 0.1, 0.3, even though you don't have any scale, it has it.
Yes,
and knowledge is.
Prasanna, you want to say something? You're raising your hand.
And something?
Yeah, you're yes.
Yeah, well,
Pranam. May I give one answer on the question consciousness? I think consciousness, that is the awareness, that is individual awareness, that the awareness we can aware about
ourselves.
Support of uniqueness of our thought, memories, feelings, sensations, we can about our. I think this is that is the meaning of our consciousness, that is the awareness. I don't know how far I'm right, because I'm complete.
That is self-awareness. That is only known to self. If that is gone, if life is gone, no, there is no consciousness. Along with that, it is also gone.
Yeah.
But it's not measurable.
Sir, may I
Yeah.
interject? If you allow me, may I interject?
Sure. Yeah.
If you see the meaning of the word conscious, it's a Latin word, I think. Conscio. Con means together, scio means to know. In other words, consciousness is an activity.
Yeah.
What kind of activity? It is a knowing activity.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yes.
And what is this know? Know involves a negation. You take example. Suppose
My presence, something, it says my presence.
No, activity of conscious. What we say consciousness is an activity, and it is an activity of knowing. Knowing involves negation. Suppose in front of you some object is there, a tree is there. How do you know? How do you become conscious that this is a tree? In the beginning, you don't know it is a tree. You just know something is. Something is, that's all. A universal, something is, everything is. But how do you know that is a tree?
That is your prior knowledge.
No, that Socrates denied that.
That is your prior knowledge. See, I say Rama, I know he's one Kiritam, 2 eyes, and 1 Gandhyam.
No, suppose you have never seen. Suppose you have never seen in past some animal or something.
Right.
And then how do you recognize that this is that something?
I have one book. Just I read about this one also 2 days back. On this one also, if you don't know, that is where this Advaita, when they call about this Advaita, when you did not even know the snake, when you did not know even the thread, how do you manage it? This example.
Anyway, I would like
one example.
No, wait. Let Shanta Maharaj talk it easy. I mean, I think everybody is speaking, but let him, complete this talk, because this word consciousness is we can keep on talking. So let him, I would ask him to, finish it.
Actually, 1 minute. Yes, anybody wants to say anything?
Yeah, last one. One of my spiritual masters, Swami Maharaj is there. He given one good examples. There is a staircase. Okay. There is a staircase. So one person will be one person will be on the 1 or 2 step. One person will be on the 10th step. One person will be on the 200 step. Still, if you consider staircase as consciousness there in everybody. But the one person will be on 1 or 2. One person will be on 200. One person will be on 10th step. But consciousness is there.
Consciousness is there.
Actually, the knowing does not come from us. Actually, knowing does not originate from us. There is some higher domain of plane from where the knowing is coming. For example, the chicken that is coming from the egg hatched by the machine, it is not getting any training or in education, and yet the chicken knows that it has to eat the grain, not the sand. From there, where that knowing is coming, it does not originate from us. Actually, there is another domain is there, and that's why there is told about finite consciousness, infinite consciousness. It's not told about only Atma. There is also told about Paramatma. So the cellular processes that is going on in our body, we are not conscious of all those processes, and yet they are going on very nicely. So are we consciously controlling all those cells, all those processes? We are not controlling that, and yet they are going on. So there is autonomous signals in the body, and that is when a person is dead or not, the torchlight they are putting on the eye, they're checking the autonomous signal is working or not. So there is something, the higher that is maintaining even our body, if you see the way it is functioning. So we cannot say that only our consciousness is all in all, or that is what you can say, only one consciousness. There is Anuchetan and Brochetan. Anuanya Mahato Mahan. It is being told. Chetana Chetananam. It is also told. There are many degrees or many individuals. The plurality is there. So it is very difficult for them who are following a monistic view of reality to understand this variety, how this variety come into existence. So the follower of especially the Sankara conception, they think that everything is Brahman. But for them, how the illusion is coming. If they say everything is Brahma, then you are talking about illusion also there. And then you are talking about, those so many reflecting media that individual is experiencing. And then from where that, variety is coming. Even the illusion, you are adding something else there.
Shall I answer this?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it is simpler to answer. For example, when you see water in the sea and I take out a drop of it, what is the relation between those two? Or if I have a piece of 1 kg of gold and I make gold into different objects, does the object varies that it is not gold? I can make rings, I can make some ornaments. Everything is gold only. Only thing is the shape is different. Similarly, these life forms are also different, but everything contains the same DNA, same RNA, same bodies. Bodies are not changing.
Now can I tell you? Can I explain this?
But it is manifested in a number of things.
Can I explain this now?
Yeah.
Now you take that drop of water from the ocean and you don't find the phenomena that you see in the ocean. You do not find waves there. You do not find tides there existing in that,
I am asking.
Wait a minute. Let me complete the explanation. So the drop of that water does not represent the whole ocean. You can get many drops from the ocean, and yet it is not exhausting. But the drop is very minute in nature. So that is not representing exactly the quality of that ocean has. Even in the mundane sense, that example, if you take,
You are right.
take that.
You are perfectly right.
So our freedom, our free will has some limit. We may think, I want to do this, but that does not happen. But the freedom of the absolute, please.
The sea does not have that.
Let me complete my statement, then you can speak.
Yeah.
So when you say about the freedom of the absolute, then it is very powerful. By his will, everything is happening. But our will, everything is not happening. So there is a clear distinction there. If anybody can understand it, any rational person can understand it, even in that analogy.
It is like very, very interesting point. It is like I have got dreams. I am in dreams, but dreams are not. I am not in me.
How dream can exist? How can dream exist without having?
Yeah,
without
but
having.
I get the dream. It comes to me, but I am not the dream.
Yes.
I am not the dream. It comes to me, but I am not the dream.
But I am asking a question. How dream can exist without your having a knowledge about that you are seeing in the dream?
Well, all that is fine. No, the knowledge or no knowledge.
There must be something existing that you are dreaming. No, the dream is not.
In the dream, I can swim in the ocean, or I can get into the air without any this one. This is possible.
Already you have the concept of those things. Ocean or swimming. All those concepts are already those things. Otherwise, you cannot relate to dream without knowing those things.
No. What I am telling you, dream. I am not the dream. What I am telling you, I am not the dream. I am in the dream.
Yeah, that is correct. Dream is a activity of mind. It is being told. Your subtle body is active.
So similarly, ocean has a different property. Individual drop will have a different property. But when this drop again meets the ocean, it will have all the property of the ocean.
But it cannot have. A drop of water cannot produce waves. I'm telling you.
Go and join there. See, that's what ultimately.
Joining is another thing. Your nose cannot produce the.
Ultimately goes to the sea only.
Yes. Yeah, your nose cannot produce the whole function of your body.
Oh, that's okay. No, here we are comparing drop of water with the soul, not with the individual parts. That's a comparison with an infinity and an individual. That's the comparison. That's why we brought see into the picture.
I think we are going out of domain. Maybe.
I think
Shall we continue with other next lecture?